In the face of the expiration of the many programs that have provided a safety net to its citizens throughout the health crisis, America's pride in the economy is about to be greatly shaken. Tens of millions are on the brink of eviction. The unemployment benefits, alongside paid family leave benefits that have helped several households to stay out of poverty, are gonna end the day after Christmas, while student loan payment suspension is about to be removed, and relief funds for states are almost gone. The time span between the end of these programs and the issuance of new ones next year remains unknown. In the meantime, millions of lives are hanging by a thread. Over 8 million individuals have fallen into poverty from the burst of the crisis up until this point, and unfortunately, without further emergency intervention, many more are to come. Impaired of working due to such unprecedented circumstances, hard-working Americans were left in the hands of government representatives that don't seem to care enough about what happens to them. Now, unemployed and deep in debt, millions are likely to face a ravaging, highly contagious respiratory infection out in the streets and hungry. That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. So, welcome to today's Epic Economist video. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel to keep updated with future videos. Unless there is an emergency intervention between the last days of December and Inauguration Day on January 20th, tens of millions of Americans could be expelled out of their homes in an event that is being called by analysts as a huge wave of evictions. Once the holiday season is over, landlords will be able to file eviction requests due to the expiration of the CDC's eviction moratorium. Many of them are on the verge of financial ruin since they couldn't collect rent, and in turn, they couldn't afford their mortgages. However, if the program isn't extended, it could trigger a disastrous homelessness crisis all over the country, putting many lives in jeopardy. One of the goals of the CDC order was to keep people housed so they could follow social distancing regulations and prevent further transmission of the virus. But the order is set to expire at the end of the year, and according to Stout, an investment bank and global advisory firm, up to 13 million households are at risk of eviction. The firm forecasts there could be as many as 6.4 million potential eviction filings by January 1st, 2021, just as soon as the CDC moratorium is lifted. Considering many of these households are composed of several family members, that accounts for up to 40 million people that could become homeless. Additionally, since the order doesn't cancel or freeze rent, all of the tenants' accumulated rent debt will be due on the 1st of January. In the absence of rent relief or an extension of the protection, several struggling renters will face eviction orders again. The health crisis is not going away before the end of the year, said Michael Trujillo, staff attorney with the housing program at the Law Foundation of Silicon Valley in San Jose. If the CDC moratorium is allowed to expire without a replacement protection, a tsunami of evictions is possible, he told CNN. He said, "We're not out of the woods in terms of a huge wave of evictions in our country with the kind of rent debt that people owe." Evidently, the CDC order didn't come into place without any flaws. Overall, evictions haven't stopped. According to CNN, some legal aid groups affirm to have seen the dockets in eviction courts decline significantly after the CDC order went into place, but not in all jurisdictions. The protection used to apply to those who couldn't afford their rent. It used to be invoked when tenants gave their landlord a signed declaration confirming that they meet specific requirements, such as earning less than $100,000 a year, having experienced a substantial loss of income and signaling that they were making their best effort to find rental assistance and pay their rent. However, it seems that not enough renters knew about the order. That's what the attorney with the Housing Justice Project at Legal Aid of Nebraska, Caitlin Sedfeld, explained, saying, "It works if we're involved and the court is involved, or if the tenant has the wherewithal to invoke the order in the first place," she said. Since tenants needed to provide a signed declaration to their landlords to meet the specifics of the order, many of them weren't sure whether landlords had to accept it or if the evictions could be indeed avoided. "We've heard from tenants that landlords will tell people that CDC doesn't apply to them," Sedfeld disclosed. The moratorium does not limit its extension by the type of housing or geography. It only requires tenants to meet the order's terms. Sedfeld also revealed she heard of scare tactics on the part of landlords, saying tenants are being told they need to leave. Landlords will say, "You know this declaration is under perjury and you could go to prison." But people might say, "Should I just leave rather than have a felony?" On top of that, in October, additional guidance was issued by the CDC, and it basically granted landlords loopholes to fight the order, allowing them to challenge the truthfulness of tenants' declarations and maintaining they have no obligation to let tenants know about the CDC protection. Landlord groups such as the National Apartment Association and property owners have created a joint lawsuit brought by the New Civil Liberties Alliance. Now that's a civil rights group envisioning to strike down the order. They defend that landlords were irreparably damaged by the CDC order and federal agencies don't have the power to waive state laws. They affirm that the CDC has interfered with private property rights with no legal power to do so. In fact, despite being necessary to avoid mass eviction in the short term, the CDC order was indeed way beyond its legitimate authority. Landlords were forced to assume a financial responsibility that should have been taken by the state. In short, this shows us how the federal response was negligent towards the effective protection of both its citizens and its economy. Now, an uncertain future lies ahead because, in addition to the end of the moratorium, several other programs that assisted U.S. citizens during the current crisis are also about to be removed. All three programs created under the CARES Act to help jobless Americans will end on December 26th, which means almost 20 million unemployed workers will lose the safety net that kept them afloat thus far. Moreover, paid leave benefits for workers who became ill or caring for someone else in their families who'd gotten sick, as well as parents who needed to care for their kids since schools are closed, will be gone by New Year's Eve. Likewise, relief funds for states that help them with outbreak-related expenses are set to expire by year's end. Congress has provided $150 billion to state and local governments. However, if states don't use those funds by December 30th, the money will come back to federal government. According to a National Governors Association survey of 42 states and territories, states are on track to expend all the funds by the deadline. The biggest part of the money has been used for health-related expenses, economic relief, education and childcare, and government expenses, the association reported. But many governors have repeatedly requested to have more time to use the aid because the state's problems surpass health crisis-related costs. There are also other budget shortfalls, but Congress hasn't complied so far. Furthermore, the student loan payment pause is about to be resumed by December 31st. As described in a recent CNN article, if Congress doesn't act to push the deadline back, millions of student loan payments will come due a couple of weeks before Biden takes office on January 20th. Even if he reinstates the pause retroactively, it could create confusion for borrowers as well as a mess for student loan processors who aren't built to suddenly stop or start payments. According to the Pew Research Center, young adults have been particularly hard hit by the fallout of the health crisis and the consequent economic downturn. As a result, they've been moving back in with their parents on a massive scale. The analysis was made on the basis of monthly Census Bureau data. It showed that in July, 52% of young adults were living with one or both of their parents. The number increased to 26.6 million. That's a spike of 2.6 million from February figures. The report says the share of young adults living with their parents grew across the board for all major racial and ethnic groups, men and women, and metropolitan and rural residents, as well as in all 4 main census regions. Nearly 1 in 10 young adults affirmed to have relocated temporarily or permanently due to the outbreak, and almost the same share revealed to have someone move into their house. Amongst all adults who moved because of the current crisis, 23% stated that the main reason behind it was because their college campus had closed, and 18% reported it was because they've lost their jobs or pointed out other financial reasons. These new living arrangements are also being associated with an expansion of confirmed viral cases, considering most parents are part of risk groups. Furthermore, the impact of such sudden change also resonated on the U.S. economy, reflecting the importance of the housing market to overall economic growth, the report outlines. The share of 18 to 29-year-olds living with their parents has become a majority since U.S. viral cases began spreading earlier this year, surpassing the previous peak during the Great Depression era, the analysis highlights. The phrase, "since the Great Depression," has become very popular to describe the depth of the latest events. As Michael Snyder has noted in his new article, that is because this is literally the first economic depression that the U.S. has experienced since that time. Everywhere we look, we can see the effects of the economic devastation that economic analysts like him have been warning about for a very long time. Unfortunately, things are set to get more worrying in the coming months, especially with the arrival of new lockdowns. A tidal wave of business bankruptcies and layoffs is expected to emerge as a consequence of another round of shutdowns. For instance, in New Jersey, where strict regulations are already being put into place, approximately 1/3 of all small businesses have closed down, according to the Star-Ledger newspaper. Eileen Keene, the state director of the National Federation of Independent Business, told the paper that this situation is really bad, and without federal dollars coming into New Jersey, the Main Street stores and other establishments are just not going to make it through the winter. The number of Americans filing new unemployment claims has sharply increased over the past 2 weeks and will continue to grow, as the economic outlook doesn't look any more promising. Needless to say that this will contribute to push more people into poverty and out of their homes. A Columbia University study released in October has informed that the number of Americans living in poverty has risen by 8 million since May. Researchers found in the study that poverty rates started to escalate very quickly after Americans' unemployment benefits dried up. Undoubtedly, the actual figures might be substantially higher at this point, since the study is over a month old, and much has happened from then to now. And of course, poverty rates will get even larger with the expiration of all of these programs. This is what an economic collapse looks like, and even worse days are ahead of us, says Snyder about these catastrophic economic circumstances. What we have experienced so far is just the leading edge of the storm. Most people still do not realize that. If you found this video informative, please don't forget to check Snyder's latest book, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, now available on Amazon. And feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section down below.